So I got suggested to watch this video by Gireum Red, who is doing a video exposing Gamefreak through their job company reviews. If you've been a viewer here for a while, you may know that I've mainly commentated on Niantic through a similar method, doing a video on their Glassdoor reviews. See, here we love Pokemon, but we also want to hold Pokemon accountable for its wrongdoing. So I'm very curious to see what this person says about Gamefreak, because obviously the company hasn't been in the perfect shape over the last decade.
Hello, fellow Jerrycans. Even if you enjoy recent modern Pokemon games, I think we can all agree that most of them were rushed and cutting corners to the brim.
Yes.
So you often have to wonder, what is going on at Pokemon Company and Gamefreak to have created such a mess? Often, Pokemon fans talk about...
I think because Pokemon is making a lot of profit on the anime, the merchandise, one of the reasons why these games get rushed is because they're on a time schedule to make sure that they're getting put out at the same time as the anime and all the merchandise. I mean, unfortunately, I think the pandemic especially had something to do with the quality of Scarlet Violet, but does the anime have lesser quality than other seasons of the anime? You know what I'm trying to say? It feels as if, unfortunately, the video game tends to be the one that gets shafted the most within this whole pipeline they're currently working with.
The game themselves, but we forget that robots didn't make the games. Actual real human beings with lives made it. What was going on with the people who worked on the games? Well, it's hard to tell with Gamefreak because it's a Japanese
Probably not as
company.
passionate. Who knows?
I'm sure most of the people watching are not Japanese speakers.
I mean, to be fair, it's not about lacking passion. I think whenever a lot of these companies that are very popular IPs get stuck in this formula, they're more afraid to break the mold. Pokemon is interesting in that case because it does try to innovate slightly within the generations. Not necessarily the first few, that there wasn't much crazy innovation there aside like fixing the game, but it's hard to argue that maybe a new gimmick is necessarily improving the game. Maybe it's more just sticking to an old formula with a slight spice change.
Speakers. We're English speakers. We don't go on Japanese internet forums. We don't read Japanese articles regularly. We sometimes just get some Google translated stuff and that's it. It's hard to get info because of language and cultural barriers. With Western game companies, it's a bit easier to get behind the scenes info through leaks or whistleblowers, but that's difficult to get with Japanese companies. I mean, there's no Reddit AMA post saying, I worked at Gamefreak, ask me anything, that exposes what's going on inside the company.
That's a good point. I've never really
Schreier doing
heard about
investigative journalism articles about what's going on at Pokemon, like he did with BioWare or...
This is actually a very interesting point, because there really aren't a lot of employees at Gamefreak who speak out against the company, at least from what I've understood.
Division Blizzard. Pokemon...
Or at least it hasn't been, you know, viral enough for me to take notice to it.
It's made by a Nintendo related company, so they're very hush-hush about that. The most information we'll ever get is...
It's kind of funny to think that I've never even thought about looking at Game Freak's like employee reviews or whatever. It's very fascinating that this video getting recommended to me is the first time it ever crossed my mind. What is it like to work at Game Freak?
Interviews. It's a shame too, because I would really like to know the inside scoop of Game Freak and Pokemon Company. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm really curious what the development process of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was like, especially considering the state the game was released in. There is no way the developers had
regardless of what they had planned for the game, again, I do feel like the pandemic had a big... you know, maybe I'm giving them too much credit, but I do feel like the pandemic kind of halted or put a cog in the machine, or a wrench, excuse me is the right expression, threw a wrench into the cog of the machine a bit.
A good time developing this game. They barely had time to finish, polish, and debug the
And understand,
thing.
I think the game
my personal
was
presumption, but
crappy.
I bet there's some
like the state of the actual main story and such,
keeps
the
setting
graphics.
unrealistic freaking release dates for the series.
But you're also talking to someone who plays the game for all these years just to play competitive Pokemon, which I think they've done it right in this generation. I think VGC has been one of the more exciting formats to get into for a long time. But again, that's my biased opinion now that I've been putting over hundreds and hundreds of hours into the game, and majority of it competitive at this point. It's not that I forgot how crappy the frame rate or necessarily the game looks. It's more that I can kind of forgive these parts of the game because the part that I actually wanted to enjoy is working fine.
Pokemon games can never be delayed because we have to release the fucking thing on Thanksgiving week season to maximize profit.
Well, yeah.
We've got to have
But it's more just the whole
Well,
IP
what if I can
as a
tell you
whole,
that
trying to
there is some
merchandise
way to get
Pokemon
some
cards,
inside
anime.
info about Gamefreak? There is a
Let's see
credible
it.
source to get inside information about Gamefreak, Pokémon Company, or any other video game company, possible as long as you pay a subscription fee. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a place for the people working there to comment about the company to provide feedback.
Oh wow.
Welcome to Job Talk. This is a Japanese
That would make
website
sense.
that features
I've
job
never heard of
reviews
this
made by
website.
professionals.
Nor would
Very
I
similar
think to look
English
at it.
websites like Glassdoor and Indeed, if you're
Yeah.
familiar with it. Here, you can search.
See, that's
any
what I
company.
looked at for my Niantic video that I made a couple years ago, the Glassdoor reviews. And again, these type of websites, it's kind of hard to tell how much of it is credible because even positive reviews could be, falsified.
See job reviews about them and their ratings. From Nintendo to Square Enix to From Software, you can search any video game company, heck, any company. Our topic is Pokemon, the mainline series, so we're going to take a look at Game Freak's job reviews. Through this, perhaps we can see what are the strengths and weaknesses of Game Freak and what's really going on.
Yeah, I'm curious. All right, let's see.
Before we start, I must make some disclaimers because this is a quote-unquote serious topic, okay? Disclaimer number 1. I'm not a Japanese speaker. We're going to use Google Translate for this, so there can be mistranslations
Very
or
true.
things not picked up. Disclaimer number 2. This is a problem with all job review websites, but there's the problem of bias and limited sample
Exactly,
size.
this is what I was trying to say.
Usually, only people with strong opinions leave reviews. Either they
Very
really
true.
love the company so much to leave compliments,
This is a good disclaimer.
or really hated the company to leave 1-star reviews. It's like Yelp reviews, but on a different scale, I guess.
Yeah, and let's be real.
Anyways, before I begin,
I try my best not to leave my opinion based on some asshole's opinion on the internet. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Even Yelp reviews, obviously if there's like a 4.5, you can almost assume it's a pretty good place to go. But sometimes when I'm in an area and I see like a 3, like a low reviewed Yelp or restaurant or whatever, I try to give it a benefit of the doubt and try to use my own judgment because especially with a restaurant, it could be, just the particular week or day you went in was bad batch of, product. Maybe they were serving you something that was expired, which again does reflect a bit on the business, I suppose.
and I want to preface that each company gets an average rating score, and Game Freak is one of the lowest rated games. Sega is 3.53, Capcom is 3.52, Konami, I'm actually surprised.
Oh yeah, if you are watching this, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing. It does help my content reach a wider audience here on YouTube, and let's get right back into it.
About this because I know Konami has a very bad reputation in terms of like how it treats employees, and Konami has 3.57, Nintendo has 4.86, Sony Interactive Entertainment, so this is where they make PlayStation, has 3.98, Square Enix has 3.57, Bandai Namco has 3.79,
This all seems
Koei
pretty
Tecmo has
normal, right?
3.22. So you can see almost every game company, major company, has more than 3. And how much does Game Freak have? 2.94.
Oh
That's
my.
not a great sign, okay? It's at least 3, and it's 2.94.
Oh,
That's
wow.
not a really good sign, okay? The only other game company I could find that has less than 3 is Platinum Games, which has a 2.95. I believe they made the Bayonetta games. Intelligent Systems. This is really interesting because Intelligent Systems is a bit like Game Freak because they're technically a Nintendo company, but they're not. They make the Fire Emblem games, so it's like a second party. It's like they're like a third company, but a second party, and they have a pretty low score too. So because people might be curious, I also searched Monolith Soft because they do a lot of help developing Nintendo games, and they have a 3.21 too. Anyways, we're at Game Freak. We're going to talk about Game Freak. So with this website, they
Let's
have
see,
one
work-life
review,
balance,
like a
they say.
review where everyone can see, and everyone else you have to pay to look. Good point.
Gotta
Depending
pay
on the
to look.
project, there are differences such as basic attendance at the office and hybrid work is possible, but if possible, you can request to work from home. So I guess this means like COVID problems. It talks about like you can work from home and work at a company too. So I'm gonna guess Game Freak, they did well with the COVID pandemic lockdowns. But
Interesting.
here's the really concerning thing.
Because if that's the case, then I'm not sure my argument earlier holds much weight. But again, this is not proving or disproving what I said.
Okay, things to be worried about or points that should be improved. Number 1, okay? The number of employees is still small compared to the scale of the title we are mainly developing. I'm gonna repeat that. The number of employees is still small compared to the scale of the title we are mainly developing. Remember when I recently made a video
That's
where
pretty
I
interesting.
said Gamefreak doesn't have enough employees? They only have like 169 employees, and other companies have like 500. That's a big oof moment right there. And the
I
develop.
wonder if the reason why they don't have as many employees is because they think that a lot of the time they're just kind of reusing the same assets. Because I feel like the models are almost the biggest issue with Pokemon games these days is they don't really seem to have much life or personality to them.
Development schedule is short. I said in the previous videos that there's too many games in a short span of time. That's Pokemon's biggest problem. The workers know this too. There's too small
Yeah.
employees, and the development schedule is short.
Think of it this way too. In a world where we now have DLC, what's the excuse for not just making a better product and maybe even extending the lifetime of a title for more than just like 3 or 4 years? I mean, it's kind of interesting to think about, like, what if Sword and Shield was still the main game right now and like Scarlet and Violet Paldea was just a DLC of that world? I mean, granted, the base game surely had to get it right for it to be even feasible to go this pathway. But I don't know. I always think that Pokemon could be very interesting if it took more of a route of maybe even like a continuous save file, like how MMOs, they have expansions, like World of Warcraft, they have like new expansions every so often, but you're still playing through your same character. I mean, granted, there's ways to change your character and race and all that in the game, but point being is, what if there was just more of a continuous title with additions to the content? Maybe the file size would be too big. I'm not entirely sure, but I always like the idea of just Pokemon, because Pokemon already kind of does a similar thing where we can transfer Pokemon from previous gens to the newer gens. And yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that? Do you have any ideas for how Pokemon can make a stronger series? Is the old model just not working anymore? Or are you okay with them releasing games every couple years?
Scoff right there for me. That's why I wanted to make this review. It says right there. That's an actual worker from Gamefreak who's saying that. It was difficult workplace overall to find secure private time. So I'm gonna guess it means they make you work a lot. In most cases, you work from 11 to late at night. So it means they're getting crunched. It means Gamefreak people are working long hours to make those games. And I felt the more I got promoted, the more difficult it was to ensure a work-life balance.
That's scary.
And the rest of the review is talking about...
That's a red flag.
So, okay, so the takeaway from the review, there's not enough employees. The development schedule is too short. I want you guys to remember that Game Freak was once a game company that made handheld games, like 2D games, and now they moved on to HD Switch, and they have to make $60 games now. So I think this is what they mean by still small compared to the scale of the title we were mainly developing.
That makes sense.
Like, they went from making Pokemon Sun and Moon to Pokemon Sword and Shield like in a year. So yeah, it's a big oof moment. That's
actually
good.
very, very true.
I want to read the lowest star reviews first because that's gonna be the more spicy ones. We're gonna read.
Yeah, let's hear what these low reviews gotta say. Okay, so I'm sure it has to do with work-life balance.
This review was around 2021, so this was around the time when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and Legends Arceus was getting developed. Good point. The scale of external partner companies and outsourcing companies are high, and there's something to learn. So if you don't know, I should have mentioned this in the previous videos, but Game Freak does work with other companies
to outsource some of their work.
Soft. I mean, I'm pretty sure there were some employees from Monolith Soft that helped.
And think of it this way, it's harder to bring on people that aren't native to your company to work on something. Because, again, I'm not a game developer, but I've done some basic programming, and even just being an artist or someone who has worked in a pipeline of animation, it's really difficult to just randomly to outsource work without having to spend a lot of time teaching how to do the way the company is doing certain things. And even coding itself it's just another language you have to learn, and everyone codes slightly different. So I feel like coding can actually be very complicated. Again, I'm not in the gaming world like that these days or anything, but I feel like it's understandable to think that it's not, if you're outsourcing instead of just having more employees, it might not necessarily be the best combination.
Or something. Things to be worried about, points that could be improved. Since full-time employees with long careers do not acquire new skills, most of these skills are handled by outsiders. So that's not very good for a company, any company. So people who's been at Game Freak for a long time, they're not skilled enough. That's not a good sign. Ugh. Anyway, the rest of the review is talking about
really bad to know.
Regular employees and outsiders. There's a
Whose
big
fault
skill
is
difference.
that?
So Yeah, Game Freak developers long
Whose
time.
fault is it if you have employees for a long period of time and they aren't up to standards of what you need to do? Is it the company for shifting the requirements or standards, or is it the employees for becoming complacent and comfortable?
Developers, they need to gain more talent. That's what the review's saying. By the way, I just realized there's a company profile on this website, and it says there's 143 people working on Game Freak, which is interesting because Wikipedia said 169 and this says 143, and Wikipedia got it wrong, and there's actually less people at Game Freak. Oh my god, this is concerning. There's a lot of reviews about like HR problems. Like this review is talking about discriminatory higher ups, and this one says there's many high pressure people, and I felt stress in human relationships. So Game Freak isn't really doing well with HR, I think. Maybe this is around
Wow,
for 2020, so
what?
they might have
They
changed
deny
it.
your
I hope.
humanity, this one says?
Oh, here's an interesting one. Good point about working at Game Freak. You're associated with famous titles. I mean, if I put on my resume that I worked at Pokemon, I guess that look pretty good. Because Pokemon
Yeah, I
is
guess,
pretty,
no, it's true.
It's pretty famous. It's a household name. But
No
this
matter
is
what
concerning.
Pokemon goes through, it's still
not
like
rewarding to keep making
solid.
the same thing. It says there, it's not rewarding to keep making the same thing. Pokemon has to keep making.
I mean, think of it this way: as someone who
20
also has like found myself not even just on like YouTube or whatever, I'm the type of person that if I get bored of something, I can't put my true creative like prowess within something. It's really hard to continue moving down a path when you just don't care about something. And I think that's a big issue with the type of world we might even live in to a degree, is that a lot of people find themselves kind of stuck at these jobs where it's obviously paying them probably pretty decent, but they don't really care about the titles that they're working on. And it just ends up showing in the product. I mean, you look at these games coming out at some of these companies that have been, you know, great reputations for decades are now just like hitting the fan. Like even Blizzard has gone through a similar thing where it doesn't feel like they more have like a formula than they actually have passionate developers behind the scenes.
5 years now, and not much has changed. They don't have time or people to try new things or technologies. Oh no. And they don't even try
Yeah.
to keep past data. They don't even try to keep past
See, that's what I think is a real like red flag. Like they just keep the same thing from
like
See, what people would say is Pokemon has never truly reinvented itself. Pokemon Legends Arceus is probably the closest game that is close to a main series game that actually tried something different. All the other games, I mean, I guess you could argue Scarlet Violet tried something a little bit different, but they're all essentially the same game formula as Red and Blue. It's kind of crazy to think about.
we're always bitching about like them getting rid of the national dex, and here's an employee saying they even try to keep past data. I can't recommend it if you want to make games or improve your skills. Okay, this is a concerning one. It says again, good point associated with famous titles. Bad point. There are a lot of people who are arrogant about what they can sell if they put it out, lacking technical skills and no ambition, and clinging to it. So they know, like they know it will sell well. Like they don't care about what they put out. They lack technical skills and no ambition. That is Game Freak. That's an employee of Game Freak admitting that.
Yeah,
2020.
that's the thing I've noticed a lot about the Pokemon IP, and I feel like I felt this way about Niantic, and it's one of the reasons why I've kind of like shifted away, making that like one of my main like, hobbies of what I like to play. I've been so much happier, by the way, just kind of playing Pokemon Go as a casual game, occasionally playing with my friends when I see them at events and such. But yeah, there was a time where that game really was my daily interaction. And yeah, it just started to make me feel really negative when I started to think more and more about like what the game was doing wrong. And it's interesting to see that like it's just the Pokemon issue overall.
I don't learn new things because I only make the same thing. Positions are determined by how flattering the superiors are, and there are people who are unreasonable to their stuff.
It's weird too. I just want to say, I felt like over the last year or so, we've been in this Pokemon renaissance where it's kind of come back in popularity. Like it almost not the same as Pokemania back in the day, but it honestly has been pretty popular over the last few years, more than I've realized, and didn't really acknowledge it as it's happening. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to think Pokemon's kind of made a comeback, even though it's never really gone out of popularity. But maybe this will hold these companies a little more accountable in the future, but it's hard to really say what will happen.
Colleagues and force them to quit. So there's bullying too. People with low skills and knowledge have been in positions for many years and are stagnant. There's people with low skills and knowledge have been in positions for many years and are stagnant. Security is too strict.
Why did you do that to them, bro?
Team. It is not possible to see the worst of others. I mean, I think this is understandable because major franchise and like spoilers and leaks. Like, I'm pretty sure this is frustrating for the workers, but I understand why they have to keep tight security because they don't want like get new info getting leaked to a central leak or something. I think it's very difficult environment to create.
Info getting leaked to central leaks are ridiculous.
Security, so there's security problems, and the production period is too short to even try it out. So I think the game industry is 2 to 3 generations behind. Okay, I think this is a mistranslation. I think it said she says the company Gamefreak is 2 to 3 generations behind the game industry. They're saying that Gamefreak is 2 to 3 generations behind.
They don't mean Pokemon generations.
Pokemon Scott and Valley looks like a game.
They mean standards of the gaming industry, like where it's at, which is actually kind of funny to think.
Workers are
the terminology there.
That, like the skills of company is 2 to 3 generations behind the industry. That is not great. No matter and this is probably the most concerning one. No matter how late the development was, they delayed the release date. I'm gonna repeat that.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
No matter how late the development was, they didn't delay the release date. So I always talk about how
that is
Zelda
just
versus Pokemon video. I talked about how Zelda released like they delayed the game for like 3 years for Tears of the Kingdom and
it's good call, man.
And Pokemon they've put out like 5
really
games during
that
the same time period. It's too many games and they're short enough time. Like it's not a secret. Even the workers know that. Maybe just the higher ups don't understand or they don't care. They just know it'll sell well.
Yeah.
Okay, this is from 2018, so this is around the time when Sword and Shield was being developed.
You know, I feel like the thing about these type of reviews is it's really easy to just believe whatever we want to, but these actually sound like very believable arguments to make.
Things to be worried about. Okay, this is gonna be the takeaway quote of the video. Even if the quality is low, I think it will sell well, so I don't spend a lot of money. Even if the quality is low, I think it will sell well. So I just spent a lot of money.
It's why they've been so resilient as a company.
Low,
I mean,
I
do feel like Game Freak, not like that. Niantic and Game Freak aren't necessarily the same company, right? But they have the same issue where they both have an IP that is just so big that they can kind of drop the ball, and there's going to be hardcore Pokemon fans that are just going to buy it and defend it no matter what. So very interesting, I suppose.
It will sell well. Even if the quality is low, I think it will sell well.
Even if the quality is low, I think it will sell well.
$22 million in 3 fucking hours!
Wow. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I feel like Pokemon's been in like a
when I say
resurgence.
Like, they know that it will
like
sell
it's like
well
second
anyways,
renaissance.
It's a joke, but this guy's not a joke. Okay, so I'm gonna move to 2-star reviews because at least they were generous to give 2 stars instead of 1 star.
Nice.
So this guy literally says why he gives it 2 star, not 1 star. It's because he has a high salary.
That's what I was thinking. They have to get paid good.
Salary.
If they have a small team.
He's honest. So at least
and no one's talking.
So that's a good positive. Things to be worried about. Points that should be improved. The difference in treatment compared to regular employees in terms of training and salary. The slow progress of work due to the excessive workload of regular employees. So there's again complaint about excessive workload. So there's crunch. The technological capabilities that are several years behind the industry. Again, technological capabilities that are several years behind the industry.
I don't even feel as if... This is what I'm thinking. Like, they're crunching these hours, right, and these deadlines, but it's not that they're actually doing the work that's required to finish the games. It's very interesting to me because they're rushing the games. They're not actually putting in more time. It's not like they're... I mean, maybe they are, You know, maybe this is like some Toy Story, Pixar story where they're staying like overnight, sleeping in the offices to get the game ready for release. But in my mind, I just interpreted this as they know that they don't have to try hard, and there's deadlines that don't change. So that's, in my mind, why the games look the way they do. I don't think they're actually sitting here slaving away at their offices. I think they just go home at the end of their workday, and they're okay with the product that they're making.
Disrespect of developers and leaders and management were unfavorable. Okay, so this one's from a late 20s woman. She was a full-time employee. In the future, there will be enough big content to live on the rest of your life without developing anything. She's
What?
saying, like, if you develop Pokemon, like, you're set for life because there's enough content to make money from? Here's another good quote. Everything is old. We finally caught up with the Switch, so I'm worried about the future as a game company. This employee just admitted that they had a hard time catching up with the Switch when they're making Sword and Shield.
And the Switch is arguably not like
from 2020.
It's innovative in the sense it's a handheld.
I'm gonna guess that they had a
Graphic-wise,
lot
not
of
really.
problem when making their game for
Processing
Shield
power
because
now.
They had to transition from 3DS to Switch. They had a hard time catching up.
It's
with
kind
the
of
Switch.
interesting
That's why
to
Pokemon
see
Sword and
how
Shield looks
much
like
they've
a 3DS
struggled
game
with
that's
this
updated
transition.
in 1080p, and because of that, it looks worse than a 3DS game. Technologically, the development is quite slow compared to.
I'm actually a huge fan of pixel Pokemon, just like the aesthetic of the pixelated version of the games. I almost wish we could somehow go back to that stylistic version of the game, but it's hard to say if that would be better or worse.
Companies. And skilled engineers are constantly changing jobs, so I think it'll be tough for game companies in the future. So it means that a lot of people are leaving Gamefreak. I mean,
like, if this woman's in her 20s, like, it's Pokemon's almost the same age as her.
who can blame them?
It might even be older than her.
Choice quote. This is from 2017, so at least this one's old. So keep remember that. But this is around the time when they were making Yoshuam, which is okay.
I didn't play
good
that.
Point is you don't have to try.
Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, I did not play at all. Even though I've heard
At
there are
least this
better
guy's
versions of
temporary
Sun and
staff,
Moon.
so he can say that, I guess. Things to be worried about. There are many people who are not enthusiastic about development, and the technical capabilities of employees are very low. A lot of people do sloppy work, and a lot of people are focused on internal politics than on development. They're more focused on internal politics and infighting rather than development. What has continued for a long time is that there are many who have low gain development skills and find it difficult to work elsewhere, and talented people quit one after another. That's
Very fascinating. So how
cringy right there.
Yeah, that's cringe. I mean, how do they find themselves in a position where they can't get rid of the unskilled employees and they end up losing their skilled employees because they don't want to work with people that are incompetent? I don't understand how you can let things get to this.
It's a title that sells well when it's released, so there's no need to make an effort.
Let's just get joy out of these
It's
reviews.
a title that sells well when it's released, so there's no need to make an effort.
That's what I was trying to say a little bit earlier. They already know, like, see, like, they make it seem with these crunched deadlines that they're, like, sitting there in their offices. Like, yeah, of course, some of them did say they do have late hours and such, but I'm telling you, like any employee, you can't work for 12 hours straight. There's a point where your brain just can't be as productive as it would if you just worked shorter shifts. So I would almost say guaranteed there's probably a lot of time that's being wasted.
God, I hope this guy's lying about working at Gamefreak. That's USM right there. They know that it'll sell well when it's released, so there's no need to make an effort. That's Pokemon Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon right there in a nutshell. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone looking to make a decent game. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna go over to 3-star reviews. So at least they're 3 stars means at least it's better than average. Okay, it's from 2021. I have impressions that ST and leaders are carried out by people of character and ability. What is ST? Software development is my guess. I felt that these ability depends on the person, but in general, I think there are many people who speak in a logical way that conveys to others. So okay, so in the previous reviews, it says that the leadership was bad, but in this review, it says that the leadership is good. So this is my guess, but when it comes to internal politics, there's usually in a company, it's a case by case thing where like people had a good experience with leaders.
Yeah.
Some people had bad relationships with leaders. So that's why it's kind of hard to.
I mean,
tell,
even
like,
beyond
if a
position in the company, it's a personality thing. And I do feel in Japan, people were a little more passive about how they express themselves. Again, I don't know. I'm not from Japan. I've worked for Japanese business before out here in LA, and I would never, if they ever had an issue with me, I would never know about it until it's gotten so far that they had to essentially, like, if someone told me something, then I know that they were extremely upset with me, which I just clarify, that's never happened to me there. But I don't know. I just feel like it's hard to really know how someone could potentially react at Gamefreak.
That's good leaders or not, because like there are people who probably
Just like the cultural difference in the workplace.
Things to be worried about from a 3-star review. I felt that many employees refused to adopt new technology as they got older, perhaps partly because of seniority. Again, Game Freak is technologically behind, maybe because there's too many old people working on it.
Too many old people
working on small DSs and not on HD consoles like Switch.
I mean, if you even think Game Freak should have gone out of business before Pokemon came out. I mean, Pokemon was extremely lucky for them to develop, and I'd say like the golden years of Pokemon. Not that it's like past. I don't even. You know what? Maybe that's a different video I can make. Like, what are the golden years? The golden year of Pokemon. When was it at its prime? I mean, technically, there's still some good stuff in the game.
All-time employees in my department
It'd be
were
a very
particularly prone to this.
subjective
As a result, I had no choice but to rely on outsiders for most of my work.
Unless we just want to look at sales. I mean, they're doing pretty good.
Up to employees who can't keep up with this era, they created positions just for the purpose and recruited human resources. So this what they're saying is that Game Freak employees are having problems with technological things, so they're outsourcing their work to other companies to help them. But I'm gonna assume that outsourcing is not a really good thing in a long term, because
that's what I was trying to say.
It's probably gonna result in like spaghetti codes, because like you need to get people who's familiar with the old codes to keep working on the game. But
see, even my smooth brain. I mean, okay, I need to give myself a little more credit. I actually have done some programming, and I do have some knowledge of how these type of pipelines work. But yeah, it's pretty much what I was trying to say earlier, is them trying to outsource a lot of, instead of just them outsourcing the work instead of just having competent in-house employees is an issue.
It's gonna make things messy, even though things are done. So this is another late 30s male 3-star review. We have owned IPs that we think are safe in the last few years. In addition, many of our affiliated companies are excellent, and their marketing strategy are highly evaluated by the public, so I think the future will be secure as an affiliated company. So it's saying that the marketing is pretty good. The brand IP powered Pokemon is powerful, so
it is
a stable company.
Yeah,
as others have written, there are many legacy.
Even Pokemon Go, which it's funny. It's not actually funny. I mean, you look at, people are still upset about the Raid Pass update. If you look at, I mean, the comments have definitely dwindled a bit over time, but there's still people actively stalking their social media trying to get that change reverted. It's not going to happen. And I'm not siding with Niantic. I just think you either have to like learn not to let a company control you on that level, or you just have to accept this is the world we live in. And, you know, if you want to enjoy the game still, that's fine. But you can't sit here and think they actually care too much about your opinion.
Development capabilities are low, so I don't think it's recommended to change jobs from other companies in the same industry aiming for a technical part. So it's saying that the technological capabilities are low, and if you want to improve your technological skills in the gaming industry, don't join Game Freak, is what this guy's saying. Let's go to positive reviews.
Yeah, I mean, like, they really only put out the one game. I mean, I know they've tried.
I just moved recently, so the office.
They've tried to put out some other titles. I actually have never played any of their more recent releases. I'm trying to remember. Wasn't one called like Home or something? But yeah, Pokemon is pretty much their bread and butter.
This is very clean. So this is a new employee. The meeting room is also fully equipped, including a free space so you can have a quick meeting. Okay, so the office environment of Game Freak is really nice, and they released photos of Game Freak's offices, and I have
to admit, good work culture.
The office looks very nice. Regarding meals, we have introduced Office Moms, and we are grateful to be able to eat when we are hungry. So I guess this means they have really nice chefs, and I'm gonna guess that it's Junichi Masuda and Shigeru.
I'm guessing the Office Moms are like just their shift leads trying to tell them to go eat food and take a break.
Well, they're cooking curry right there. They're cooking curry, and they're gonna hand it out to employees.
It's like
so they have, at least they're getting fed.
I've heard someone say before, if you ever work for a company that tries to tell you that you're a part of a big family, that's a red flag. You should get out of there fast. Because I don't know, like I get when I work for any company, I want to give them my 100% and be a team player, but you don't need to try to make me think that we're family. Like I have enough respect and such for my coworkers, but I don't need to be sitting here acting like I need to like put my life on the line for them.
At Gamefreak. So this is on their 4-star review. When I joined this company, it was all about Pokemon. Working on a world-famous title and receiving user evaluation from all over the world is rewarding. I mean, if I was working at Pokemon and my game sold tens of millions of copies, I guess I would be proud.
Yeah.
Also, there is no seniority at all, and the director listens to opinions equally. If you're interested, you will be hired. Some teams have leaders in their 20s and subordinates in their 40s or older. So I'm gonna assume this means there's a lot of turnover rate. Because in the previous reviews, people were complaining that there was too much turnover rates. So I guess that depends on perspective.
That would be pretty bad also.
Like it when a company is filled with less experienced people but younger people.
Like think of it this way, like yeah, having third party outsourcing whatever is bad, but having a lot of turnover is actually really bad too, because that might even entail that they're just hiring people that don't have necessarily good experience, but they're willing to learn. And it's hard. Like if you have a high turnover rate, that's just generally not a good sign of the work culture at the place you're currently employed at.
Or people who's more experienced but might be more have big power distance over you. Especially this is Japan, right? Where there's a lot of problem with elders in organizations. Things to be worried about. There are no titles that sell well.
I wonder, I don't really know what he was, I don't know the exact details of what he's trying to get out there, but from what I've understood, in America, we're like, fuck the old, which I think is terrible to think. I mean, I'm in the camp that if you're an elder, say an old person passes away, we look at that person a lot of times in America just as an old person. But that's a library that just burned down. There's a lot of knowledge that's being held with an older person that you have to remember that they also lived an entire life. But in Japan, it's the opposite, where there's a high respect for your elders. And I'm assuming that there are probably elders who kind of let that get to their head and they're a little more egotistic and controlling. I'm assuming that's what he's getting at here.
Than Pokemon. I mean, I'm pretty sure a lot of people play that Little Town Hero game, right? And
Little Town, that's what it was called.
Game, was it? That elephant game?
That looks cool, though.
A badass elephant or something? Why did I make that elephant game anyways? It's so random.
I probably wouldn't play it, but I like the graphics and style of it. From just that picture.
See, like, people who really love what Gamefreak talks about. Regarding the work from home system, they sent me the same development equipment with the same certification as the company, and I was able to work home without any problems. The performance of the development equipment is also quite high. So again, they talk about the work from home thing, and I guess it was on everyone's mind during the pandemic. And I'm gonna assume this means they sent like dev kits to everyone's home so they can work at home. And that's a good thing for a company to do. Things can be improved. There used to be something like a...
Again, I mentioned at the beginning of this reaction that I thought the pandemic had a big part of why Scarlet Violet's development was skewed or messed up, but based on some of these reviews, they're saying that they actually adapted. But again, I don't know how it's hard to really gauge how much it actually... Like, did it still hold back the company a bit trying to make this, like, adjustment
activity
or adaptation?
There was a subsidy, but now the activity is gone. It's an environment where it is difficult to communicate with people outside the team, so I would like you to make such efforts. So again, this guy is saying there's a problem with communication between teams, and I think that could be improved. Okay, well, another 5-star review. This is from 2021. Since it's Pokemon, the opinion of the upper class is absolute, and I thought that the staff class wouldn't be able to give their opinion, but that wasn't the case. Rather, it's a culture that encourages people to express their opinions, and I was surprised and rewarded when my opinion was adopted, even though I had just joined the company. It is an open company and an environment where it is easy to express one's opinion.
Interesting.
I mean, that's a good thing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's a problem with this is the same thing as Korea, but there's a problem with seniors not listening to the younger people, and the younger people just like
Yeah, I think it's like a
following
cultural
orders,
thing in
because this is
Asia.
an Asian culture. Just considering this is a Japanese company, this is a really great thing that the upper class is listening to the younger class. It's so funny that I keep mentioning the work at home system. Apparently it was really good. Again, many people like games, so really pursue what is fun and what is interesting. I've come up with good ideas several times while talking at a roundtable discussions. She recently moved to another office, but her previous office was close to the public, so she sat on the ground and thought of a project while saying no, no, no. It's probably a weird translation error, but it's what he says.
Oh yeah, we have to keep in mind
and there are
he's
few
using
people
Google
with unpleasant
Translate.
personalities. I think the people at Gamefreak at least are nice people when they're not getting crunched. Oh wait, this is from a 5-star review. A company that puts a lot of effort into growth. The evaluation system is solid and is pervasive. The superiors are committed to developing their subordinates. The training system is also well developed, and every 6 months, employees are asked to participate in the training they want to receive while consulting with their superiors. So there's good training, I guess.
See, the thing that's interesting about this, it feels like it contradicts some of these other reviews where they're trying to say people are unskilled. Yeah, I feel like there's too much variation here.
They put a lot of effort to growth, so good. Things to be worried about. Those who are older and whose skill have not caught up are retiring. It would be nice if there was a system that would allow them to revitalize their careers. Aw, so this male employee.
So maybe it's the older employees the issue.
And it's like, so other job reviewers are saying there's too many people with not enough skills. Well, this one says it would be nice if there was a system that would allow them to revitalize their careers. So,
why are you doing them dirty like this?
From this guy.
Bro.
Okay, this is what's really interesting. Since
Do you even celebrate his
I can
birthday in
change
Diamond Pro?
jobs when changing jobs. Other companies are starting to actively create Pokemon works, so you can be involved in your favorite IP even if it's not this company. This is interesting because it's from 2019, and I guess this is when Pokemon Unite and Pokemon Go and Pokemon Masters are coming out. And Pokemon expanding outside of the main series game.
Mobile gaming.
As a gamer, that's kind of stupid for me because the mainline series is bad and the spin-offs are getting like too greedy, but as a worker that'll be pretty good for them because they can expand. Anyways, that's about it. There's other reviews, but there's like, this is really old reviews with not even stars, so I'm not gonna read these.
Around 2013, wow.
So in conclusion, what did we learn from this session?
What did we learn from this?
What nasty secrets did we learn about Gamefreak? What sinister revelations have we uncovered about this enigmatic company of deceit? What dark whisper?
I mean, it seems pretty standard, right? I'm just based on what we saw. Like, there's going to be, like you said at the beginning, people who have strong opinions are going to write. Like, if you had a great experience, doesn't even necessarily mean you're going to write anything. Even if you had a bad experience, doesn't mean you're going to waste your time and go write on this website about how bad your experience was.
Whispers of shadowy secrets lie in this Stygian corporation. Well, in all fairness, we did learn some positive aspects about working at Gamefreak. It seems everyone is getting paid well.
Yeah.
There's a nice office, and they did a bang job at remote working during a time of a global pandemic. Also, it seems there's a lot of young people working at the company with a horizontal organizational culture, which is important in an Asian country like Japan.
Yeah.
I also learned new information about Gamefreak too.
There's a lot of outsourcing.
I realized there will be a lot of outsourcing going around in the company, and it seems they're getting a lot of good talent for the games from outside forces. But the problems we discovered. Oh boy. In my past videos where I ranted about the modern Pokemon game's stumbles and failures, I always said it was probably due to a lack of time and not enough people, but it was honestly all speculation on my part.
Yeah.
But here, we got actual grounded proof from actual Gamefreak people that the number of employees is too small, the technical prowess of the company is several years behind the industry, there's too many people in the company that's not skilled enough, and worst of all, they're never allowed to delay games.
Yeah, it seems that there's probably older people in the company that are gatekeeping developing better quality games.
Pokemon. We got some nice quotes from this research, such as,
but again,
even if the quality is low, it will sell well. It's a series that sells well anyways, so there's no need to make an effort. Like, even they know how
it would be interesting if there was a generation that just straight flopped. And would they try to revitalize the IP, or what would happen? Is there a time where Pokemon just stops?
Pokemon has fallen.
It's hard to think about.
Content for the consumer since it will sell well anyways. Why put effort and work into it? Why update the graphics? Make the game less buggy? Or bring back the National Dex when it will sell well, even if they put out 2 games in a span of a year. High sales are actually killing the series.
That's the irony of this all.
Before I end that video, I must make myself clear again.
The success of this franchise is in fact hurting it. Wow, that's kind of crazy to think about.
There's a case by case for everything, and there could be a bias and spite against the company from these people. I also don't want anyone to attack or blame individuals at Gamefreak 2. It's honestly the
You've been posting
Pokémon Company that is the
like
problem, okay?
Non-stop.
It's their fault for setting unrealistic release schedules, which leads to a toxic working environment and games getting rushed. And maybe, just maybe, there could be a change in the future.
Junichi Masuda, there he is again. You just post him again, bro.
Gamefreak. Our dear 151 master Junichi Masuda has basically retired, so there could be some changes there. There was also Pokemon Scarlet and Violet mixed critical reception and public outrage of the game's status. So hopefully this feedback does help the company.
Like, we don't really know all the faces at Gamefreak.
Misunderstand. The whole point of the video is me hoping Gamefreak and the Pokemon series improve by exposing its secrets through the company reviews. I love Pokemon, and I want it to be better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a fair point.
Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. This is really my first time doing some unscripted content with a face cam, so this is a really difficult video to make.
I enjoyed it.
I'm still pretty camera shy.
What did you think? Did you enjoy this video?
I get really nervous while free talking and stutter a bit, so I hope you don't mind that, and I hope to improve.
It's all good.
Thanks, fellow Diricans.
Alright, I'm gonna give this guy a like. And I'll be sure to put a link in the description sharing this video. But yeah, there you go. Do you think Gireum exposed Gamefreak here? Did you already assume this was the case at Gamefreak? Are you thinking that Gamefreak can turn around and make a stronger Pokemon title here in the future? With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, the Sass Squad is getting stronger each and every day. Good morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're tuning in. I'll catch you in the next one.